It is said that when he came back from the temple at age 12, and you didn't hear from him anymore with their sins. And one of the things that adds validity to that is if you look at what the Essenes believe, give mankind the opportunity to create it to be. The last time that happened prior to his coming was with Moses at the mountain. When he came out of the mountain, they were having the party and stuff and all that. Had they not done that and received what was being offered, then the transition for mankind could have taken place at that moment, but it didn't because of the selfish attitude of man. Now, how does that relate to what we do now? It relates in that it speaks to the whole idea of the selfish nature of man and the selfless nature of man. Selfless meaning that there are portions of mankind, segments of mankind, who are selfless in that they don't see themselves as being worth anything. They don't value themselves. The other is that selfishness means you value yourself too much. So there is no happy medium in that. And when you don't see any value, actually don't make any efforts to make anything different or better. When you see yourself as being more than what you should, that is selfish, then you make every effort to manipulate, control, to take everything from everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the effort is to reach some place of a balance in that. And something, I just had a flash and I need you to help me with this. Could it possibly be that we are seeing a manifestation of this balance, but we have to recognize it and verbalize it in order for it to begin to take root? And what I mean by that is this: if the African is one extreme and the Caucasian is the other extreme, then when both of them come together and they and from them come a child who represents both of those extremes in terms of what we call biracial, in actuality is balance coming into play. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. It's a physical manifestation of the opportunity to bring spiritual balance. Does that make sense?
It does.
You're in the midst of it, and you see all these other things, and what you begin, and what happens is the segment that sees itself as selfless, not worthy of anything, sees it as, well, it's not going to be any of us left because of these interracial marriages, and the other end of the spectrum sees it as, well, there is our race is not pure anymore. But when you bring both of them, when you bring that balance, you begin to see, hey, this is about bringing some semblance of balance and peace to the earth. And that does not begin to take hold or to take root and to grow until we recognize it for what it is. And by virtue of doing that, we also give life to it. These racial boundaries, these and get away from the policy of racism, because we've done that by virtue of policy. And policy is simply social norms that's accepted by the population at large. That's what policy is. So if we can alter the policy, and what I mean by altering the policy is to put in its place or put out there or give life to a policy of balance and acceptance as opposed to a policy of separation. Then we can begin to see a more expressed manifestation of the messianic nature that all of us possess, or that all of us is. Any questions about that or comments? So, we have to be very, very cautious about how events that we read in the paper, how we speak about things in newscasts or even in programming on TV. In the terms of and how we think about it. Why? Because when we speak, whatever we speak, we give life to it. Mm-hmm. Whatever we think becomes a seed for birth. And to verbalize what we think is to birth it. So, how do we do that? How do we be, what is a manifestation? What does it, how we speak and how we think? What does that look like? When we make a determination that our desire is to have only thoughts of loving kindness and forgiveness. Everything that's dark in terms of confusion, separation, manipulation, etc. An African American killed, shot in the back by a policeman, rather than saying the policeman is racist, back from that, because it's not that the policeman is racist, because the one who did the shooting is also African American. It's that the policeman is enforcing a policy of racism. So rather than addressing the policy of racism, we see it as a virtue of loving kindness and forgiveness. So loving kindness is not just expressed towards the family who lost the person who was shot, but loving kindness is also expressed towards the family of the one who did the shooting, and forgiveness is expressed towards the one who did the shooting individually. You see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. See, what we fail to see, I got you, Denise. What we fail to see sometimes is that the one who pulled the trigger has a family too who suffers as a result of him having pulled that trigger. Mm-hmm. In many, many different ways that we don't really look at. What we look at only is usually, personally don't call it a victim, because victim tends to lend itself to someone who's looking for pity. It's the one who was shot, okay?
I was going to ask you to unfold the word policy a little bit. Because when I think of policy, I think about, somebody setting an agenda in Washington, and there's a document and it's really long and it's very specific. And I mean, I know that there's some similarities there, but I don't know, I'm thinking about it as a way of thinking about a certain type of people or their value to, and I don't know, just can you translate policy to, the black cop on the street who pulls the trigger? Like, how is all that connected?
When I talk, first of all, let me deal with the document. There are documents of policy of that nature. It was only a few years ago, 5 years maybe, that in slavery. It was only a few years ago that they did that. So that policy was still intact. Policy had, even though there are documents, policy has more to do with the actions of people than it does with a document. Because you can write all the documents you want. If the people don't accept them, but they do not use it that they use when they make reference to Africa. But policy is developed by the attitude and how you respond in the society. And all policy is not written. Policy is sometimes simply manifested. I was trying to think of some examples of the defiance to written law that's done by policy. Let me give you an example. When the arrest was made for FIFA, you saw the Swedish policeman holding sheets up to hide the identity, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have means, when you're arrested, they do the perk walk. They don't care who sees you. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. If you have influence, you are released on your own recognizance. If you don't have influence, then you're not. You have to have bail. So policy is here's one. According to the law, bail is not to be as a means of punishment is to be set as a means of the guaranteed appearance in court. And bail is supposed to be set as a guaranteed appearance in court, but it's supposed to be set within the means of the one who perpetrated the crime. So, if you make $50,000 a year and your bail is set at $250,000, that's $25,000 that has to be put up. So that's not within your means. So it's more punishment than it is to guarantee an appearance in court. The other thoughts, but the policy has changed even though the law hasn't. Another one with that is that you are supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers. That's law. But very rarely is anyone tried by a jury of their peers. It depends on what ends they want to reach. If you are arrested and you go to trial, and the people who are on the jury, whether they be African American or not, consist of people who live, let's say, at Lake Carolina, and you live in a place like what's that place over there where the cocoa plant used to be? Ridgeland. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. If you live in if you live there, these people are not your peers. They don't see. The reason is like the way you do. They have your experiences, but that doesn't happen. So that's policy as opposed to law. So these are the things that I'm talking about when I talk about established policy. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in any customer service job, you always have to say, you have to give your reasons for whatever asinine rule that you have to enforce, and you have to say that's policy. I just wanted to use that as an example because it's more so that you are, in terms of the way society works, is that you are deferring to policy out of a unwillingness to sort of enforce or allow justice to balance itself out naturally. And you do that out of a sense of fear, you do that out of a sense of wants to supposed to be involved in the process that will help deal with the source of it. And I hate that. Like, for example, I work in a public library, and we cannot allow people to sleep. So, but we have all the homeless people in DC come to that library.
Yeah.
And you can't get sleep for 1,000 different reasons. So I don't like waking people up. And usually I don't. But if they're super obvious with it, then I kind of don't have a choice. But I sort of do. And that's because I'm not willing to enforce what I consider a dumb policy if justice is not being thrown out of balance by somebody putting their head down on the table. And so I think that's the type of thing that has to, those are the thoughts, those are the intentions that have to be put back into those that get people more interested in justice and more interested in perceiving and then facilitating balance as opposed to enforcing rules or enforcing policy. That's what I'm going to add to it.
The rules changed in enforcement when the policy, obvious policy change in enforcement was when the kids in South Carolina State were killed. The policemen went in riot gear with tremendous amount of force at State College. When the kids at Kent State were killed, it was an awful tragedy. And policing on college campuses that are predominantly white changed. But it did not change on campuses that are predominantly black. White kids are just unruly students. Black kids are riot. White kids, we just have to clear the streets. Black kids are arrested. That kind of thing. White kids turn over police cars and set them on fire, and this city just replaces them. White kids do it, black kids do it. Now they find every angle of the camera so they can arrest everyone who did it. You see, so again, it goes to what Nick said about not wanting to deal with the root of the problem, but not letting, at the same time, not allowing justice to balance itself out. So what happens when justice doesn't balance itself out? People generally get frustrated, and when out of that frustration, they may burn a check cashing place on CVS. And the only thing that people see on the surface is these people burn this CVS and this check cashing place, and they burn the stuff, and they burn their own neighborhood. They don't own anything in the neighborhood. They're not burning their stuff. They're not destroying their stuff. But they come to a realization, not only am I frustrated, but the only time that people who have the power to change things listens is when you hit them in the pocket. That's the only time that they listen. And because if you read the insurance policy, it says that they pay for everything except natural disasters, war, riots. So you have the expense of, replacing your own property. You know what I'm talking about? So that's hitting in the pocket. If they were insured against those things, it wouldn't matter. So these are some. I hope that helps. Simplify the whole concept of policy, because policy and politics are so intertwined until it's very difficult, to separate them without having some sense of sameness involved. But that's residual effects on both sides. It's hard to separate the two. However, we don't have to consciously separate the two. All we have to do is consciously project love and kindness and forgiveness continuously. Regardless of what the circumstances or situations are, that's what we have to do. Why? If we are to do what Jesus did, then we have to do what Jesus did. That's what he did. He projected loving kindness and forgiveness. Even when the temple priest came to arrest him, the temple police came to arrest him, and the ear was cut off. Remember? And what did he do? He said, "No, this is not what I'm about, y'all." And he restored it. This is not why I came. You don't change anything with a sword. You change it with a sword. But the sword is a spiritual sword and not a physical sword. Because violence beget violence. And the only thing it does is serves to strengthen a wall of separation, as opposed to having someone to sit down and come to a negotiating place, or to talk about things, or to deal with things differently. And I'm not saying that people are going to do that, because they are not, unless we do what we're supposed to do in the other realm. We have to do what we have to do in the other realm. I'm thinking about not just the upsurge in racial tensions. There's no upsurge in racial tensions. It's just that light is being shed on it. This thing happens all the time. The upsurge in the weather conditions. There's no upsurge in weather conditions. things have been out of whack around the world all the time. It just haven't been affecting America, so we ain't care. I'm serious. I mean, when you have people in India dying because they don't have water, you don't hear of any tankers taking water into India. But let an earthquake take place, they take it in because the cameras are there. And America are the great humanitarians. Why not nail to India? You know, I don't hear that on CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN. I hear it on Al Jazeera. So if what we're seeing are the things that we have by virtue of our desire to bring balance, these are the things that we have shedded light on. These are the things that are being revealed. These are and everything that's taking place is not just something against a man or the earth. Everything that's taking place is a revelation of the issues that needs to be dealt with. That's all it is. It's a revealing of what needs to be dealt with. And what I mean by that is, when we began to deal with the attitude of men in relationship to each other, then we also deal with the attitude of men in relationship to the nature of the earth itself. There is no way that we can talk about dealing with a level of peace, harmony, balance with mankind and not have the same thing in relationship to the earth. Because when we express this balance, this peace, this harmony with mankind, then what are we doing? We also bring to bear an opportunity for mankind to see the damage that it's doing to itself by virtue of what's happening in nature. Does that make sense? Now, one of the other things is that one of the other ways, rather, that we have, one of the things we have at our disposal that we very rarely focus on because we're not so much aware of it, and that is the ability to override the rules of nature. That's what's meant by dominate the earth. This is your kingdom. You set the rules for it. We have that ability to do it. Jesus showed us we did when he quelled the storm. Right? That's overriding the rules of nature. 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. Fig tree being cursed. All of these things, these are not nice little stories that he wants you to hear. I'm the man. I did. That's not about that. It's about these are the things that you are capable of. These are the abilities that you possess. Now, so what you need to do is understand that love and kindness on a continuous basis, coupled with forgiveness, always puts you in a place to be expressive of what we call supernatural abilities. When they're not supernatural, they're just natural. The abilities that we have to change a multitude of things. We
do it, but we don't recognize.
We don't do it.
No, the reason why I said that.
I'm talking on a larger scale.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we do it because there have been times when I just had just a little bit of food, right? Not that I just cooked a little bit, just to say that. And then people show up, and then
it's always enough.
It's enough.
Yeah.
For everybody.
And you don't pay any attention.
Right.
Now, if you did not have a desire, if your desire was not genuine to feed them, you wouldn't have enough.
Okay.
I'll give you another example. Last year, when we had the cookout at the house in August, right? Oh my God, I put over 100 people plus there, probably about 150 more. And I had bought 2 cases of chicken. And we already had some left over from another cookout, right? When we finished, we had not used 1 case. with all those people. We don't know what happened. We had food, a huge amount of food left over. And I mean, in every area, there was food everywhere. So, and we were like, because when I went back when I went to Robbie, I said, do I need to get some more? He said, we haven't even double the other case of chicken yet. I'm like, what? But not only that, it was all the food that it seemed to multiply. It's all about desire, being genuine about who you are, and it's not about, it cannot be about you wanting people to know who you are or to see what you can do. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
What Jesus says, tell no man. Right? What is he saying? I don't want you to be so, I don't want you to be arrogant about what you've seen, who you are, the abilities you have. I want, all I'm saying to you is do what you do without anybody knowing what you do. No one has to know. What's up?
Sorry. I went to Finley Park on Saturday last week.
Where?
Finley Park.
Uh-huh.
And a gentleman was at the top of the park praying loud enough that the entire park could hear him. And he repeated the same prayer over and over again for about 45 minutes while people yelled at him. It just, and you're talking about people, and all I could think about, because we talked about it last week too, about you don't go out into the street.
Yeah.
But that was all he could do. I mean, kids came up and mocked him. People told him to shut up. He was having none of it. He just repeated the same thing over and over again, praying to the different directions of the compass.
And that was him.
All he did was aggravate people.
And it's him, but to him, it was the devil attacking him. And he was standing up as a Christian in support of what Jesus taught.
Yeah.
Which is a lie.
Yes.
Don't go on the street, on the corners like the Pharisees, right? Isn't that what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Go in your closet. So this is what I'm talking about. The reason I say it not on the large scale is because he will not even experience what we just talked about. Because he has chosen to be in concert with the God, the Jesus, the Spirit that was created by the church, as opposed to the one that created everything that is. And when you make that choice, it is no different than a golden calf choice.
Meaning?
You have created an idol. It's just that simple. And if you create an idol, then you have to give life to it. And the way you give life to it is by talking about what it does for you, even though it does nothing. Example. I prayed, and God gave me this car, then 4 months later, they repossessed it. If he gave it to you, why are you paying for it? Well, he gave me the means to pay for it, then now you lose your job and the car. I mean, but if you understand that I don't seek things, period. I don't seek people knowing who I am because of what I'm capable of. The only thing I seek is a revelation of the kingdom and its righteousness. And I let everything else be what it is. Yeah, it's like I'm just like a bird. I don't concern myself with what's going to come tomorrow or the next day. I concern myself with being a manifestation of righteousness and the kingdom, and that's it. Everything else, it doesn't concern me. And one of the ways I used to term it, and I did not understand anywhere near what I understand now, I would say that's God's problem, ain't my problem. Whether or not the kids have what they need, that's his problem, not mine. I just do what I'm supposed to do, and he take care of what he's supposed to take care of. And that's how I've been living my life, not realizing that, the depth of life that it brings to the earth, and the depth of understanding that it brings, not just to me, but to mankind as a whole, in terms of people getting to that place, not so much individually, but collectively. If we were to look at what the disciples did as a result of having been taught by Jesus, we will begin to see that a lot of what we have been told about, how rebellious they were in terms of leaving Jerusalem and going out into the uttermost parts of the world. They did that. However, there are so many other things that they were capable of, that they accomplished, that is not written about in the Bible that was given to us, but is written about in the notes of the scriptures that were taken away from us. To be quite frank with you, if it had not been for Muhammad, we wouldn't have had anything to look at beyond what was given to us. Because if the pre-Constantine Christians, as they are termed, had not been protected by Muhammad, then those books, the Book of Thomas, the Dead Sea Scroll, all these things, we never would have had them, because anyone who did not burn them was put to death. But they went into Assyria, and Muhammad protected them, so they were able to practice Christianity the way that, and I say Christianity because in actuality it was not a religion at all, it's life itself, that they practiced based upon what they were taught or what they read from the scrolls. So there's a great debt to be paid to Muhammad for that, which leads me to say that all of this anti-Islamic stuff stems from the anti-Islamic stuff from Catholicism. Because it was anti-Islam until Muhammad became stronger than the army that the Catholic Church had. Then they sought a truce. And that's, I think I talked about it last week. The truce was, what came with the truce was Muhammad ended up with one of his wives being a nun. And that's why in Spain you have this image of what's called Fatima. It's in the place of the Virgin Mary. Wherever they go, whoever the person that you look at in high esteem, that's what they call her. One of Muhammad's daughters was named Fatima. And they said they had an apparition of Fatima who told them that they were to come together. Now, all this other stuff that's going on today is simply a revelation of the viciousness of the wars that took place then. Saying that balance must be brought to the understanding of both Islam and what's called Islam and what's called Christianity. Because Islam, the word Islam, I think it just means follow or believe or something. I can't remember.
It's like submit.
Submission. Submit. And that's all it talks about. So, and this is going to get me. For Islam means to submit, and Christianity means the power and strength to do everything we're sent to do. Both of them mean something totally different than what's perpetuated by its so-called believers, its so-called followers. Isn't that something? Now, then the argument is, and I don't know why I must do this, that between the Alawite, the Shiites, and the Sunnis, right? The Alawite, the Shiites, and the Sunnis, all of them Muslims. But the division and his sons, there were some who followed, each one of his sons. That's where the divisions came. No different than the divisions in what is called Christianity when Constantine took over. So whether you're Sunni or whether you are Shiite or Alawite, it doesn't matter. It's just a denomination. Just like these denominations think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when we get to and we always talk about, well, if you look at what truly is written about Christianity, then everything is totally different. So if we do not have tolerance, if we cannot have tolerance about those things, the other worldly things, if we cannot have at least tolerance for that, how can we expect to have tolerance for each other as people when we look different? When people, and you will, how can you say you love me and hate your brother which you see every day, right? What is that saying? That is simply saying, how can you fight someone on the basis of what they believe, or hate them on the basis of what they believe, or seek to destroy them on the basis of what they believe, and say that you're one with me, and you've never experienced that with me? How can you say that? Because if you're one with me, you understand the nature of spiritual things. And they are not divided. Is that not what's happening? And I know they'll say, well, the Christians are not fighting on that basis. Yes, they are. The whole thing in Northern Ireland was about Catholicism fighting the Protestants. That's what that was about. And the war was based upon those who split from the Catholic Church and those who didn't. That's what that was based on. The war in Northern Ireland. Now, reconciliation came when they recognized that this is who we came from. This is our mom, the church. Okay. So, all of these things that we have rambled on about, I guess, seem to be separate entities that we must deal with one at a time. But I submit to you that they are not separate incidents or events, that all of them are exactly the same. But the reason they appear to be separate is because they appeal to a certain segment of the nature of mankind. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And every one of us who are quote-unquote believers, now I don't mean in the sense that we come to talk about that, have the same affinities as all of those who are perpetuating these seemingly separate events. But we have chosen not to submit to those affinities, but to submit to the affinity of oneness with the Creator. That's the difference. That's the whole difference. If we were to submit to the politics of it, then we are just like the leaf blowing in the wind. And it's blowing, it's moving, but it's getting nowhere because it's stuck to the same tree. And that's how it is when we see this politics. Nothing changes politically, but everything changes when policy changes, when the attitude of society changes. That's when everything else changes. And I'm going to ask you something, and I hope that at some point I get a challenge on this, basically talking about change. It is my contention, and I don't know how deep the belief is at this moment, but it's my contention that the source of the trouble for the entire world must also be the source of the remedy for that trouble. What I mean by that is, everything in this world that's going wrong can be traced back to this country. And when we bring some balance here, the root of it all, then truly the axe has been laid at the root of the tree, and it can be cut down, and the tree of unicity, the tree of peace and harmony, can grow exponentially throughout the world. Because if there had not been an invasion of Iraq, there would be no ISIS. You see where I'm coming from? So, and I do believe this. Call me crazy.
Crazy.
Okay, thank you. If it were not for the Trail of Tears, the center of the country would not be experiencing what it's experiencing. I do believe that. They took them to where? Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The center of the country. I believe that those things that are happening in Texas is a direct result of what happened to the previous owners or occupiers of Texas. And what happened when the what's it, the Monroe Doctrine, or the Doctrine of Manifest Destiny. The Doctrine of Manifest Destiny says that it is in God's will for us to push west and to, what word did they use? It was to, in essence, it was talking about and take advantage of all the land because it's ours. And as a consequence, people pay the price of death. And I do believe that this is a result of it. I also believe that what's happening in California is a direct result of how the Chinese and the people of South American descent were treated in terms of being forced to raise crops for less than minimum wage, dying in fields and nobody caring. The things that brought Cesar Chavez to prominence, the things that he was fighting, I believe that all of these things are coming home to roost now. And the way they come home to roost is, for example, you cannot drill for oil in a flood in Texas. And you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You cannot drill for oil in a flood. And you cannot force people to harvest cabbage when there ain't no cabbage growing because you don't have any water. And the way they irrigated California for the system, for the agriculture system, was irrigated to the advantage of the large farm owners at the expense of anyone else who did not own a large farm. And now they're paying the price.
So I'm trying to think. So what's keeping the East Coast intact, or is anything keeping?
The East Coast is we go through a heat wave. Look at the snow. The only place where we have not had detrimental weather is South Carolina. The rest of the places have been flooded, and look at the snow during the winter. I mean, come on. I'm standing in the winter. I see all the snow going off the highway. I'm in Rhode Island. It gone. And just as we were thinking about, what, we might see the ground in a couple of days, it gets 2 inches of snow in just a few hours. I mean, so things are happening, yes.
New York was spared, for the most part. I don't think they got, there's so much happening around New York that they didn't really get any blizzards or anything.
And y'all didn't really get anything. They see New York, I wonder why. even when I think about it, Philadelphia was spared. Because it did not shut down like New England did. And so many other states in between. Something to think about.
But you know what I hear all the time on the phone with my customers? We coming down to South Carolina. We got to get down to Myrtle Beach and Hilton Head Island. They got to, they're flocking here.
Well,
they really are.
And they've always done it. That's where Myrtle Beach is one of the most popular beaches in the country.
It is.
That's why they want to build a highway from Michigan to Myrtle Beach.
It's ridiculous.
Huh?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. and I tell them, I said, people in South Carolina go to the Myrtle Beach. That's the last resort to get away. They're like, I'm just going to Myrtle Beach. It's close, it's easy. And I love it. I'm just going. Yeah. But anyway, when you look at the things that happen, people take for granted that it's something natural phenomenon as a result of carbon emissions, which is true. But look at the places that are being spared. They got the same carbon emissions.
And what's
Nobody
carbon
that-
emission again? I'm sorry.
But when you drive, the carbon dioxide from your car,
Okay.
and the coal plants, the electrical plants, the electrical plants that are fired by coal. I forget. I was at Santee Cooper, and they talked about how many thousands of tons of coal that they require in a week's time. And what they do right now, somewhere on the tracks, there is a coal train probably a mile long between Santee Cooper and the coal mines in West Virginia and those other places in western Pennsylvania. And what they do, they leave it on the tracks so that if something happens and the coal mine shut down, they have that coal. So what they do, that coal that's sitting on the tracks now, when they require, at the time they need to deliver, they pick that up and bring it, and then bring it up and stop it there. So they'll always have that continuous supply. And everyone knows coal mining is dangerous. Not only that, but the coal itself is killing everything around. And I wish I'd have thought about that when I was a little boy. All that coal I had to bring in. But we, so anyway, we are experiencing phenomena that all the phenomena that we're experiencing is caused by man, one way or the other, and it all goes to greed.
Yeah.
Everything goes to greed. This policy of racism goes to greed. Everything is greed. Everything is about $1. TPP is about $1. Everything is about $1. Why? If you can keep people chasing $1 and keep them feeling good about themselves, or just about, close to being comfortable, what we call comfortable, then you can keep their eyes off, or their focus off what's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been the thing. When Silicon Valley crashed, that was by design. There were too many young people out there who had a lot of money who were raising questions about what the government was doing. And all of a sudden, during the Reagan administration, you have what you call technology. It just crashed, and all these companies lost all this money, sort of. And then now you have rise again, and they're controlled by people who really don't care what's going on with government.
Yeah, and asking no questions now.
No question. All they want is the money. So the same principle applies to us. Go to church on Sunday, and depending on where you are, you go to church on Sunday. Every 20 years, you build another building, and you don't change anything in the community because we just go pray and these folks to the devil. That's why they got what they got in their community. And in another setting, you go to church on Sunday and help buy a $65 million jet, and the Lord will bless you. You ride the bus to work, but you need to buy me a jet. You can barely afford to ride the bus to work, but you need to buy me a jet.
I didn't know his name was actually Creflo Dollar.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, cry for $1. He used to be a Baptist preacher, by the way. Ed Long did too. Both of them were.
They've been around forever.
Huh?
They've been around forever.
Since the 80s.
Okay.
But you know what they're doing now?
Forever is so relative.
Yes, it is.
Perhaps you know how it is when you used to having money and then the money is taken away and you start looking for change on the floor in the pillow thing. That's what these preachers are doing now, because Mom said, her pastor came and asked my brother who they didn't treat as a man. Now the pastor asking him, telling him, we need you to come back. So like they scraping, trying to stay alive.
Well,
They're going,
people, that's it. People represent Butts in the seat represent dollars.
Exactly, that's all they want.
Yeah. I ask the question constantly, in conversation with people, what is new or different in your life now than what it was last year? Think about the issues you were dealing with last year. Are you still dealing with those issues? Then my next question is, how many times have you prayed about it? How many times have you brought it to the altar? How many times have you been called down front to pray? Yet you still got the same stuff going on. Why is it not changing? And we never usually get to the place of trying to help them to see how impotent that belief system is. It's not only is it impotent, but what makes it impotent is that it is empty. It is devoid of anything that could bring any kind of relief of any kind whatsoever. That is the reason this person can be at your job teaching the scriptures, but everybody she teaches comes to you for direction, and you don't even go to the class. You see what I'm talking about? What draws them to you? There's something different there, and that is the thing that drew people to John the Baptist in the wilderness. It was something different about him, but he did not understand what that thing was. When he saw Jesus, he saw in essence. He saw somebody who had been with the Essenes. He knew that he was a quote-unquote high priest of the Essenes. Why? He recognized him because of the light of his eyes and the linen robe that he wore, because that's what they wore. And to undergird that, there are those who say, no. If he truly believed that the Creator was sending another, and that another was one who was going to change things spiritually, he never would have said, ask Jesus, is he the one, or shall we look for another?
No.
He never would have said that. What he saw was a priest of the Essenes who he felt was coming to deliver Israel from the hands of the Romans. Now, mind you, he never questioned who Jesus was until he got arrested. When he was arrested, that's when he said, ask him. And keep in mind, Jesus did not say, ask him what is his problem. Did I tell him at the water what was happening? Did he not experience something there? He didn't do that. He says, there has never been a man born of a woman greater than John the Baptist. That's what he said. Read it. Why did he say that? He said, this man baptized me, not truly knowing what he was doing, but he did it anyway. This man stood in the face of the priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the elders, and told them you're wrong. He preached it in the wilderness when no one else was willing to do it. Everybody else were afraid to do it. He did it in spite of knowing that the priest could have him killed at any moment or have him arrested. He did it. Think about it. He did something that no one else had done. He told them what was wrong, but he did not see how to right the wrong. Jesus saw what was wrong, but also sought how to change it. John was looking to change it the way it got wrong, by overthrowing the Roman government, so now we don't have these priests who the Romans put in power. Jesus saw it from the perspective that there's a deeper problem than some priest being handpicked by a government. The government is not the problem. The problem is that those who profess to be the perpetuators of spiritual things are the ones who have lost their vision, so now they're doing what the government tells them to do, as opposed to being the government from the other world. That's what he saw. That's the whole difference. The pulpits are full of people who wait on Hillary. And I use it metaphorically, of course. They're waiting on her to come in and speak. The other pulpit is waiting on whoever shakes out from that 20 plus folk to come in, to change things. That's who they're waiting for. But Jesus said, in essence, you can't wait for the government to change things, John. They are not going to change. It is not to their benefit to change. And you can't wait for the priest to change because they're not going to change. They like the check. They like to have these tailor-made robes, and they like the fact that when they walk to the marketplace, the bells on the robes part the crowd. They like being escorted to the front of the building when they come into the church. They like that. They love parking in pastors' only spots. So they're not going to change that. It's not to their benefit. Somebody has to stand up and say, the heck with the pastor's only spot. Who cares about what the building looks like? It matters not about how much money you pay, because my subsistence does not come from you anyway. It comes by being added because I'm seeking the righteousness in the kingdom. That's what has to take place. And until someone stands up and does that, there will be no change. The world will continue to go through these pains, moaning and groaning. But guess what, John? When someone comes on the scene who's willing to do that, then all this moaning and groaning is going to get worse. It's going to get worse. You think that he's coming to bring peace? No, he's coming to bring a sword. And that sword is going to reveal everything that needs to be dealt with. And only when the pulse that's running from the source of society is dealt with and the wounds are healed, only then can peace and harmony be experienced by mankind. That's basically what Jesus was telling John. That's exactly what we are today. We have to be the ones who at one point refused to leave Jerusalem because we did not understand the essence of what was being said. But when the danger came and we began asking questions and was told in some kind of way to shut up or leave, that kind of thing, then what happened? We left and began to deal with those things that were in us from the beginning, because the revelation came, and when we began to hear someone speak what we were feeling, it made sense, it resonated. So what happened is you shake off the shackles of the government, and you daily experience the crucifixion of your ambitions that are selfish, and you daily recognize that the issues with you is not you. The issues with you are the ones that you have taken on to be a part of you. And the greater way to deal with the issues is to be still and say to the Creator, all I desire is to seek your kingdom and the righteousness. And when you do that, that's when you begin to find out what's in you. And all those things that comes up, you know how people say, well, when you join the church, everything will be all right. But everything just go crazy. And the reason it does is because you're being shown the things that you need to deal with. Mm-hmm. These are the things that's blocking your view of the kingdom. And when you begin to deal with them, it's not solving them, it's looking beyond them. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
It's not solving them.
Yeah.
Because think about it. How many issues have you had in your life in the last 6 months or last year or 2 years that you didn't solve it, you just grew beyond it?
Yeah.
It's still there. It just doesn't bother you because you're bigger than it. You know?
Yeah.
And what I mean by bigger than it, I mean is that we are more than just conquerors. we are more than conquerors means that we don't just grow beyond something, we also grow something in its place. Because if you leave it empty, then whatever you think you grew beyond is coming back and it's going to affect you in the same way. Does that make sense?
It does.
But when you grow beyond, and I will use as an example, in South Carolina is being forced by powers that does not understand to take the lead on this battle, the domestic violence thing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even understand the powers that's doing it, but that's where they're headed. But anyway, it's no different than a woman who's battered, always abused, always end up seemingly in the presence or with someone who is an abuser. But then she gets to the place where it doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't mean that has been destroyed. It means that she has grown beyond it. Why? Because the more you see who you are, the more you're appreciative of who you are, the greater the opportunity becomes for you to grow beyond that place where you minimize the importance of your being.
Yes.
That's what changes things. And when that changes, guess what? If you're out of the company of that kind of energy, that means that you're in the company of another kind. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And being in the company of another kind, the company that's in that energy that you grew beyond, you began to cross your path and you began to say, I got beyond it, you can too. That's simply being your brother's keeper. That's what it is. And anyone who says, you know what, I want you to help me. And the moment you say, okay, you become a hedge around that person. So anything that gets to that person got to come through you first. When we see it that way, and not see it as somebody else's problem, there is no such thing as someone else's problem. All of them are ours. You cannot believe that you are me and I am you, and then separate issues. No. It's just reflective in me, something that needs to be dealt with, that I am incapable of growing past on my own. I need your help. That's it. And that's exactly what we are supposed to be doing. Because if you look at it, the things that Jesus did, the reason they were written about, even in the Gospels that are there, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the reason that they are written like that is because they did not truly understand the essence of what he was doing. If you look at it, it deals with primarily, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John deal with primarily the things that he did physically without necessarily understanding the spiritual implications. But when you read Thomas, and when you read what is called the Lost Book of Peter, when you read the book of Mary, you begin to see something different there. You begin to see a different type of Jesus. Because what happens is you begin to understand how he processed things.
The writings are different.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're totally
you can
different.
feel it.
Because they're more spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you look at the book of Thomas, think back. Thomas said, how can I know the way? Didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus began to tell him what he was talking about. When he said that the I am is the way, the truth, and the life. When he talked about that, he was not talking about the stuff that that we're taught. But Thomas saw something there. When Thomas talked about touching the holes in the side, the hand, Thomas saw something. It was like Thomas caught a vision that the rest of them did not catch. And it's like Thomas just, after that, he just fell off the scene. He just disappeared. Mm-hmm. He did not disappear. Constantine made him disappear. Constantine became Houdini. He gone. And anybody who's caught reading or teaching what Thomas said shall be burned at the stake as a heretic. That's the way it went down. So if you want to know the true essence of the spiritual Yeshua, you cannot do it by just reading that. You know, the Bible that was given to us. You have to go beyond that and begin to read the things. I tell you what, you can even read Josephus. Just read the section of, because Josephus got a lot of stuff. But if you just read the section of Josephus that deals with Jesus, you see a totally different Jesus. Totally different than what we are presented with. And when you see the essence of who he is, then you see the essence of who you are. But without that, you won't.
I was going to say in the book of Thomas, it actually was, I forget that's one of the things that it said. Like, the disciples asked, when will we see who you
Oh,
are?
yeah, right.
And Jesus says, when you take off your clothes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Lord.
When you take off your clothes?
yeah. And he ain't talking about that, you know. And that's that earthly garment that we put on. We hide behind, it's like the hypocrite, you know, the mask, the true meaning of the word hypocrite. But that's what we've done. We shout at church with our choir robe on. And then we cuss everybody in the neighborhood out. Then we're so holy and milky breathy until when you get on your knees. I read those thing that one of the kids said, and you get on your knees and you say, I love you, Jesus, but I cuss a little bit. I mean, how ludicrous, you know, is that whole idea. It's like you got to tell him. And another thing that gets me is that he never told you to pray to him. Never. He never told you to ask him for, just ask Jesus, he'll do it for you. He ain't gonna do nothing. He never told you that. He said, ask the Father, didn't he?
Ask the Father.
He never told you that. And asking the Father, you don't need to ask for one thing. One thing. The understanding and wisdom of righteousness and kingdom. That's it. Everything else be added. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, so related, but it's something I just actually look up the word.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't think to like just look at it a long time ago. But did you know that the word blessed does not really mean what we have said it means? Because the word itself comes from a word meaning to put blood on or to wound. So like even in French, the word blessé means to be like cut or something with a sword. So if you think about what we have the ability to do in terms of create our own experience, when you ask for a blessing and nothing changes or improves physically and sort of makes you more comfortable, exactly what you asked for.
Interesting.
So, and the real reason that it is that way anyway is because when you're put in a place that makes you uncomfortable, that's because you are supposed to learn how to use that place to get what actually is valuable, which isn't physical comfort, although when you move beyond that thing, it may result in a more peaceful physical environment, but that's not what you're supposed to be, here for.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to add that because that's just one of the things that sort of adds to the total confusion of just that whole thought form that religion and church represents.
Evan, I see a question.
I think I heard him, but I'm not sure.
What you think you heard?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I mean,
What did you hear?
I heard that blessed didn't mean what we thought it meant, and that it was something about it means blood, the shedding of blood,
To be cut.
to be cut.
Yeah.
And what else?
So then I said, well, what do we when we ask, or when people say, I was blessed, or they're usually talking about material things that sort of make them more comfortable or improve their,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But 90% of the people who ask for that, again and again and again over years, are in the exact same position.
Right.
So what I said was, because we have the ability to create our own reality and invite things into our experience, part of what we are doing is, in asking for a blessing, we are asking for something that we don't understand, we are asking for.
Okay.
And so we are inviting not things that would make us physically comfortable, which is what in our minds we think we want.
Right.
What we're actually asking for is for things that force us to recognize that we're doing the wrong thing.
Okay. Okay.
So it brings discomfort.
Right. Exactly.
And this is that if your feet were not uncomfortable, you wouldn't buy larger shoes.
True.
So that's, if you can see that and see it from this without some discomfort.
True.
So, and the discomfort does not cause you to be dismayed if you see it for what it really is, the purpose of it. You're like, I don't have bad days. I just have opportunities to grow stronger. When you, it's like seeing the glass half full or half empty. It's always that, and it goes back to loving. Purposeful thought. Everything in your life reflects forward movement of spiritual growth. Everything. When Jesus came to complaining, or when he said, if this cup, you know, if it be your will, that's the closest he came. Prior to that, I'm not complaining. It was like, okay, John, you did what you did. So he goes into a mountain, because that's what that scene, that's where they lived, in the mountains, that's what the caves were. So he goes into a mountain, and he walks out of his cave, and on the other end of the cave, I'm just being descriptive, of course, and he sits on the edge of this cliff, and he began to, why am I here? Why am I at this place at this time? And then the battle starts. If you are who you say you are, then jump off this ledge, that kind of thing. The battle starts internally. And it's like saying, well, if you are who you say you are, just go into Jerusalem, stand in front of the folks and say anything you want to, go to Caesar, just tell Caesar off, because you can't die if you're who you say you are. And he says, why would I put the Father in a position to save my life when it profits nothing? Basically. Then he thinks about his future. And most of the essence, by the way, we're carpenters. He thinks about his future. And this thought comes to him, you know you got to walk. Get no car. You know, you might not, you may suffer and you only have a place to call your own if you do what you are going to do. And he thinks about it. And he says, well, I can't live by bread alone. All this material life is not the thing that's going to sustain you. And these are the things that went through him that he was accepting. Are these not the things that we face?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These are the things. If, you know, when you know what, boy? You're going to be popular. But you don't have to go through all the trials to get popular. If you just take what you know, take what you understand, and go on TV, then all these kingdoms, all of these worldly principles, you will have command over them. You will be the man. all these thoughts because of what you understand. These people will flock to you if you just say what they wanted here, but put it in the terms that you've been taught and see how your ministry blow up. He was offering him the kingdoms. Is that not the things we deal with?
Oh, yeah.
The same thing. And we have to be strong enough to face them and move beyond them, because the day comes when the people who are the closest to you will challenge you. And he says, unless you have some distaste. In other words, when he said, unless you hate your mother, your father, etc. He was saying, unless you have a distaste for what they believe, you cannot follow what I teach. At some point, you're going to be challenged by them, but you're going to have to be strong enough to understand that that's not who you are. That's what he was saying. The hate was not what, that word should not have been translated as hate, by the way.
Right.
Disregard. You have to be strong enough to disregard those teachings. You cannot show respect for those teachings because you can't have both of them. You got to express your disregard for those teachings and keep moving. Why? If you don't, you will never be able to follow what I teach. That's all he was saying. We're not facing those things.
Oh, yes.
And we can do it without hurting people's feelings if they allow us to. But there comes a time when you have to say, tell those vipers, you know, you're a snake in the grass, you're the serpent of the God. I'm not going there with you, that kind of thing. Because there are those who will challenge you in that way. To push you in the corner, just let it go. Why? Because if you don't let it go, you will be guilty of casting pearls beneath the feet of swine. And they do nothing but trample them in the mud. In other words, they just have no effect whatsoever.
And it's not our fight.
It isn't. The battle is Yahweh's. We just the instruments of battle. And that's a whole new lesson. Instruments of battle. Believe you me. Last thing for me, I think, unless you have questions or comments. If you don't accept and embrace the idea of being a battering ram, you can never knock down the doors of the justice down. In other words, if you don't recognize that you're simply a weapon and weapons are used in ways that hurts them, you will never be able to cross the threshold of enlightenment and go into the room of wisdom and walk out with understanding.
Mm.
Okay?
Put that on my wall.
Just don't ask me to repeat it. Go to your wall and read it. Okay, I'm done unless there are questions or comments.